About some high school football, week 9. Can you imagine that? It's what this season's just flown by.
It is just it's been like on roller skates going downhill.
Downhill, that is for sure.
And downhill and just in the us getting fast, not that the not the season's been downhill.
No, it's like you're starting to hit the accelerator. You can start seeing the acceleration going on during the season. They're
Exactly.
always the very like in August. I'm sure the coaches are like, I can't wait until these practices are over. And then you get the first couple weeks, they're like, gosh, I can't wait until we can get our execution down. And now, when you get your execution down this time of season, you don't have to worry about injuries. But it just seems everything goes fast.
Exactly. I've got to admit, though, this has been one of the more enjoyable seasons for me. I think.
Oh, same here.
I've really enjoyed my games. I had another good one Friday night. It's just been a great season.
Yes, it has been. The good thing about it so far, I haven't had any really bad weather. That Friday during Hurricane Ian, thank goodness all those games were moved to Thursday, or most of them were Thursday. Some were Wednesday, some Monday, but that helped out a lot.
Exactly. Speaking of Friday nights, everybody can see the photo I've got up that Carrie out took a picture. There's a couple of them. She takes obviously a lot of pictures for West Lincoln,
Right.
and I was looking for pictures to use. I've been using her pictures when we do the announcements of the cast, and you'll see I stuck another photo in a few places, and uh, her work is just phenomenal. And so I found a picture that the one that I used of the two guys with their shoulder pads off, and one of them doing, he's showing his guns, and I went ahead and went with that one, and she messaged me and said, "How about this one, the one that you see here?" And she sent two of him. I think it's a sequence of the same play that we see here. Uh, the kid has got 1,600 yards on the season. Uh, had 35 carries for 397 yards against Newton Conover. What a ball game! 3 touchdowns. The kid is obviously having a real good season. He was on Talking Preps last night. I'm glad that they saw and recognized that he had such a great game. So he and his mother actually was on last night. It was more cool listening to her than it was him. Highly competitive mother breaks down film with him.
Well, that's
But
wonderful. I like hearing that.
yeah,
You know,
but
historically, you
West
don't.
Lincoln and the season is just running down on me so quick. But I am going to go to a West Lincoln game. I've got to imagine. I say I got to imagine. It's been a number of years. I bet it's been 6, 7 years since I've uh, been over there. But the for me, when I know that you have similar feelings. For me, I have criteria for games, and I'm very selfish in that I've got to enjoy going to the game in some manner. Uh, I have to get some kind of fulfillment from it, and I usually like to see good competitive games. I don't care how good the teams are, as long as they're competitive. Uh,
Right.
Certainly, we all like to see highly we like to see very good teams play highly competitive games. There's no doubt. That's
Right.
there's a certain thrill to that. But as I was telling some when I mentioned the three games I was considering this week uh, to some guys, and one of the games was Palisades and Berry, and a question came up: Palisades and Berry, and I put down my first criteria is always a competitive game. I think it'll be a competitive game. Also, those kids recognize us, uh, especially all of us that are on talking preps. And if a kid recognizes us, and Jim, I know you've seen this, they they get a certain feeling about they came to see my game.
Right.
And that gives me a lot of joy as well to know that maybe just by being there, maybe I've helped make some kids, feel a little bit better about themselves. So West Lincoln, and of course environments. Uh, I've had no better game than the Catholic Providence game. And I say that not just because it was a game won in the final seconds, but that Catholic crowd. When I left that game, I am not joking. It took me hours before my inner emotions, the hypeness that I had in me, had
Right.
settled down. Because of the whole environment, the game, the competitiveness of the game. It just met every bar. It was like 100% on every bar. So uh, I think going to West Lincoln might provide a similar feeling. So maybe in 2 weeks. I have to look at schedules, but I wanted to see Palisades one more time because of some commitments I made to some coaches, and I'd like to see them win from a community perspective. So maybe next week I'm going to go to Providence Day and Charlotte Christian this
That
week.
should be a good game. That should be a really good one. Although I think Providence State will win that game.
Yeah, I agree with you.
The about West Lincoln though, if you look at historically about that county, you always have Lincolnton. For back in the 70s and 80s, they were pretty much the top dog. East Lincoln really came onto sight probably 15 years ago,
Right.
and then West Lincoln has been the team that took forever to get into the playoffs. They didn't get into the playoffs until about for the first time until I think like 15, 16, 17 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that program has historically struggled. And it's good to see a team like West Lincoln. I mean, right now, West Lincoln's almost, they're not as good as East Lincoln. East Lincoln's a 3A school and, top 10 in the state in 3A. But seeing West Lincoln compete, play teams like Maiden competitively, and it's good for that program. They also have to worry about the programs in the Catawba County. You got like Newton Conover, you got Hickory, you got Maiden, Bandy's, Bunker Hill, Fred T. Ford. A lot of those schools just kind of dwarf West Lincoln. So it's always good to pull for West Lincoln. Just historically, they've been the underdog, and it's good to see them have success.
Exactly. I've seen East Lincoln a number of times, and like the last time I saw them was when it's been a few years for that, but it was when they played Monroe in the playoffs over in Monroe.
Right.
The like you say, West Lincoln's just not a squad that you normally hear talk about, obviously because of records. But they're doing pretty good this year. They're 5-2, and I just think crowd might be. I don't know. I'd like to go see them. I'd like to watch Carrie work. I think her work is phenomenal.
Oh gosh, yes. And Carrie, if you're listening, I imagine you are. I love watching or just viewing the photos that you do. It's just incredible. Just the sheer talents and also just the preciseness and uh, a lot of those pictures, Dale, is if you'll notice the kids are smiling, they're happy, they're achieving success, and those pictures capture that. It's a very good spirit. It kind of embodies what we try to do. We want to improve the pleasure for everybody that's associated with that high school athletics. And Carrie's
Exactly.
what Carrie does with the camera is so important.
Yeah, she captures great moments, and it was the exact reason why I started taking photos, and I don't do it anymore. I need to carry my camera back out and shoot some more. But the reason I did it, uh, I selfishly started taking pictures of my sons and a few of the friends. But of course, you always get other pictures, and kids saw them, and kids went crazy. And when I saw the reaction of kids, it drove me for the longest time. And I remember being back, it's been about 5, 6 years ago. I was over at Mallard Creek, and there's a shooter over there. And every time I'm ever at a Mallard Creek game, she'd always come over and talk with me. And her and her husband shoot. And she told me, she said, these kids are using your pictures. So they put them up on their profiles on, the various social media, et cetera. They were putting them up, and she's like, "You ought to be charging for that." And I'm like, no, the most I did was I put a little watermark in so that, and it was lightly, if you remember them, that I wasn't heavy with my watermark, just so that people would know where it came from. Not that I
Right.
was wanting ownership, but maybe it might drive us a little traffic.
Exactly right.
My
And for
biggest
those,
thing was, gosh, man, I gave away so many pictures. It's not funny. Just just because of the enjoyment it drives. And that's, you see, as you say, you see that in the pictures that she takes. I'm sure it's partly she's capturing them, so they're getting their pictures taken, but it's also just appears to be kind of like the environment, so like it's an
right.
environmental thing.
You
So
know, the interesting thing about it, a lot of people think we somehow make money off of what we do, and I guarantee I've not taken a cent at all in 15 years from football. Actually, never. And
exactly.
the you hear people like, well, you should do some type of investigative report about recruiting, and I'm like, that's not what I'm in here for. I'm not trying to. I'm not a sensationalist journalist whatsoever. Going
Exactly.
back to Carrie's pictures, though, the pictures that she did of the homecoming courts
I'm getting
and
you to put one up.
and
She just
those
sent me a
pictures,
couple.
she did
Um,
like, I'm going to say 20, 25, probably, I can't count how many there were of the moments of the homecoming queen who happens to be a football player for West Lincoln. She is a kicker. And just amazing. I mean, it captures, I mean, it was just like instantaneously picture, 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 shot, 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 and
right.
just amazing.
Let me. So there's one of the pictures. I can get it to save. Save image as. There we go. Well, it did save it. Okay.
Dee Dee Wallace, that's her name. Thank you, Carrie.
I'm getting there to get it shared. I had to. All right. I'm opening it up. All right. There we go. So now let me share this window. And I don't know if this is her father that's with her, but it's I think a pretty
That is a
phenomenal situation here that we have. So this is another thing, Jim, that we talked about on Talking Preps last night, just briefly, and had a longer conversation with people like Sam Griner and females playing football, and we were talking about kickers, and he was taking that masculine point and not I couldn't live with it with if a girl beat me in football, beat my team. And I told him, be prepared. It's going to happen. Um, and it's not just going to be an extra point that the girl's going to kick. It's going to be a field goal. And it'll be a 45-yard field goal, maybe. Don't be surprised if we see a lot more of that over the next few years. Uh, there's a number of
And,
places that have female kickers that are big contributors on their teams.
and I'll tell
Uh,
you what, also, females are not just associated with kicking. I saw a linebacker that played for Alamance, Western
uh-huh.
Alamance. I guess it was about 4 or 5 years ago, and she could hit. I mean, she wasn't tall, but I'll tell you what,
Right,
she was. I mean, she could square up the runner and tackle. She could make the open field tackle. I mean, she was a backup linebacker, which is pretty good because Western Alamance is loaded with talent. Historically, been loaded with talents, and that year they
right.
were, and she did get some playing time, and uh, I have no problems at all with. I don't care what your gender is. If you want to play football, you're welcome to.
As long as what you want to do,
Yeah.
go for it. If you are, let me see here. If I got another, there we go. Here's another picture. One of the things that I've noticed, Jim, and I don't know when this took place, but kickers wear upper 80s numbers now, or 80s numbers.
It used to be
Um,
like single digits, growing up for me at least.
exactly. 80s was an end number for ends, um, defensive and offensive ends. So when we had tight ends and stand up defensive ends, now we mainly have more D tackles than we have ends. But they wore the 80s, not kickers. Kickers wore single digit numbers, maybe depending if they played another position on the team. When I was in high school, our kicker was a lineman as well, so he had a 50 something. I can't remember his number, but I notice now it's like maybe not all of them, but everyone that I've noticed is wearing an 80 something. 89 is a very popular, 86, 89, those are very popular kicker numbers. Uh, that's pretty, so Carrie could tell us how good of a kicker she is. That would be good to hear. Um, is she contributing? We could look on Max Preps probably and see what her scoring and maybe what her field goal accuracy, et cetera, is. Uh, I'm going to that Providence Day Charlotte Charlotte Christian game, and Providence Day has a female kicker. They have a female place kicker. She does not do kickoffs and does not punt. Now, I was at a game a couple of weeks ago. I don't think it was this past weekend. And there was a female punter. Now, she did not punt in the game, but her punting, so she was obviously a back, she was a place kicker and punter. And she place kicked, but she also, I'm guessing, was backup punter. And she was standing, right around the 45, 50-yard line and punting to the end zone in the air.
Well, Dale, got a
Um,
quick question for you from the Charlotte area. Do you remember a lady named Cricket Morton from
oh, yeah.
Albemarle? She's yeah,
Yeah. She's from Albemarle, right?
she is. She's same age I am, and I used to play
Yep.
golf with her. And it was we had a she played for Albemarle, I played for North Stanley, and I had a pretty good day that day. I shot a 81, and cricket I think shot a 77 or 78,
Uh-huh.
and she there is no shame whatsoever at all for you guys to lose to any lady whatsoever. There's no shame. I didn't cricket to shoot as close as I did to cricket that day was she might have actually shot a 76. I remember right. I mean, she was just an outstanding athlete, and
So I don't know how it would really go down if I'm right or wrong, but I've almost got a feeling that if you had a game on the line kick, a female kicker might actually handle it better mentally. And I say that because of how highly competitive females are in athletics. Um, I think their level of competitiveness exceeds those of
hmm.
men. I'll still say the most competitive sport you'll go watch will be women's soccer.
Well, I'll tell you, it's an interesting thing you say about competitiveness. You ask anybody that's had a teacher that's had to break up a fight. I guarantee you, in a lock in like in a hallway, they'd
Uh-huh.
rather break up two guys fighting than two women. Guys, a lot of times, want one of the guys want to stop fighting. It is not the same way with females. When they start fighting, you better stay clear unless you want to get hurt really bad. So,
Right. Yes.
my,
Again, I think it's that competitiveness that kicks in. So they live on emotions maybe more than we do. Obviously, we've seen emotions go the other way,
I
and
think they also I think females probably rely more on logic than anything else. And
rely on logic more. I don't know.
I,
I can't.
I just
I
think
can't. I can't make a. I can't make a statement on that. I'm a logical person, so
well, I know you are, and I try to be, although sometimes I fail. A lot of times I fail at that. But I just from my own observations over the years, a lot of times females are able to apply logic to things. Guys will take a certain fact and believe it is true without doing any type of research whatsoever. They just
hmm
regurgitate. Doesn't it could be something a false statement about sports or about food or heaven forbid politics. I'm sure you've never seen that before,
right,
but
exactly.
I, I just seem to believe that they women tend to be more logical than guys as a whole. But
I got you. Yeah, that I've not really studied enough to make a comment.
I, I just my own observations. So
Sure. No,
take
I
it.
understand. I mean, I haven't been in enough situations where logic gets applied that, unfortunately, the situations I have been in, let's put it that way, where logic should be applied, uh, doesn't weigh well.
See, I'm a compliance officer for my, or I should say compliance. I'm a compliance director for my CPA firm, and I'm the guy that has to tell people like you need to do this. You're not doing this. You need to change your methodology. And it's interesting to hear the excuses. Oh
uh-huh.
golly, it's in CPA land. It's about 50-50 between males and females, and some of the stuff. A lot of times, I think arrogance gets in the way with a lot of guys, and I think that's why some people tend to wrestle with the idea of having females play football. And to me, it's just arrogance. But again, take it for what it's worth.
Yeah, I think it's outdated. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. I'm like, 1968 called Archie Bunker wants his personality back.
exactly. Archie Bunker's
So,
fake personality you've inherited is a real personality. Exactly.
yeah.
I'm going to suggest to Langston Words that he write an article about this girl. That's a pretty, yeah, I don't know why. I saw the pictures now that I've seen these. I saw some of these pictures. already, but it didn't dawn on me. I'm trying to pay attention every time I see females um, playing football here to try to get them, or some way associated with the sport to get them recognized, because they obviously want to do this, and I think they should be encouraged to do this. Um,
I agree, and I think everybody should be accepting too, and not. I don't see people. I don't go into the locker rooms. I don't know what the kids are saying or the coaches' mentalities are, but I just think everybody should be accepting, no matter who it is.
yeah, I don't know what the mentalities would be today. I know what the mentality would have been in my locker room.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
it would not have been good. Um, it would have been very negative. And who knows, maybe even negativity, directed towards, not maybe, I'm positive there would have been harassment and all
oh
that
yeah,
other kind of stuff that shouldn't exist, would have existed. And but would it today? I bet it does to a certain degree. It would. But what I've noticed, Jim, because I do pay attention to this, I've noticed that each of the girls that I've seen are accepted by their teammates on the teams that they're on. So,
I see that too, and I think a lot of it has to do with the generation, their generation, and a lot of people say, well, back in my day, we didn't do this, we didn't do that, we didn't have all these faults. I'm gonna tell you what, the generation that's coming up through the high school right now are pretty special people. I mean, I feel good about where our world is heading to when you see these kids interact on the football field. Now, I'm not talking about the fools in the stand. I mean, some of the stuff in the
right.
stands, it was the same way back in 1988 and same way back in 1977
Yep.
and back
Let
when
me
my dad
address
was.
that last statement there. I'm positive that she changes in another locker room. That wasn't the I guess the point there being made. What is being said in the locker room? So she may be in her own locker room. She may not even go into a locker room. She might wear a uniform there and leave, but the guys are in the locker room together, and so the
Oh
locker
yeah,
room talk that comes up would be very, I think, at least in my time, it would have been very, very negative. Um,
yeah.
and then when it came out of the locker room and either at practice or away from the field, even or in school, she would have been harassed to some degree.
Right.
She'd have been ridiculed, or maybe not directly harassed, but there would have been a lot of sarcastic comments made that were actually meant to be intentionally hurtful. Um,
Right.
that kind of stuff certainly
Yeah.
would have, and today maybe not as much. Like you say, I'm hopeful that younger generation of people are much are much better about this. We're
I
humans.
agree. I think they're definitely more accepting and very more tolerant, and I think every generation, to a certain degree, they pick up some of the important things in life and about how to treat
Exactly.
other people. And the thing about the locker room comment I was making about it had nothing to do. I know they're not going to. Obviously, she's not going to be in the same locker room when they're changing and stuff like that. That's obvious. But during that segregation period, when she's not in that locker room, you always
Oh,
wonder how other
guess
coaches were.
guess what? She's apparently in the chat here.
Oh, wonderful.
You
Well, Dee
know,
Dee, I just want to tell you congratulations on being elected homecoming queen. That's a great honor, and I love seeing the photos of you and your father. Just Carrie did such a great job taking click after click after click to capture that moment. It's it's so much better the way Carrie does it than a video. I don't think a video in real time could have done as great a job as Carrie did.
so if she wants to, Dee Dee, we'd like to have you on.
Oh, please, that's great.
I'd like to talk to you about being a kicker and a girl and a guy sport. Because I'm all for that. I'm 100% for it. That would be awesome. Okay. We've talked a long time about that. There's been a few comments thrown up about a few things before we go do our things. Let's see here what else flew by here.
And we had a bunch of
May,
comments about football game matchups, and
yeah,
we'll
Maiden and
get to all
Bunker
those.
Hill. I think what we'll do, Jim, is after we quickly go through the top 10 stuff, you can bring up the games again like you've done the past couple of weeks, and we'll take a look at some of the games that are upcoming
Okay.
and talk quickly about them. Let's see what else. I think that's everything that what everybody has said. Asheville just added a female to the team mid-season. That's great. Yay, Asheville. Chase Trojans. How about Cleveland County? I was over in Cleveland County Friday night watching Kings Mountain and South Point. So Shelby plays Thursday night. Oh, so does that mean I might could go to a game tomorrow night?
Oh, that's
Who's
awesome.
Shelby
You know,
play tomorrow night?
the thing about Cleveland County, a lot of people in Cleveland County are probably looking at is whether they can get two state championships, a 2A and a 3A. I think Kings Mountain is definitely one of the favorites, if not the favorite in 3A. And in 2A, you got Burns and you got Shelby. I mean, one of those, both of those teams are title contenders in my
They're
book.
they're both title contenders. There's another Western team, Monroe, I think, that's a contender.
Oh, yes.
Kings Mountain, after watching them play, oh my gosh, they're legit. This is the most legit Kings Mountain team I've seen.
I think Kings Mountain, if they were a 4A team, obviously they're kind of a average to maybe a slightly below average size 3A school. I think they could be in the top 6 or 7 in 4A. I think they're that
uh,
good.
After what I've seen defensively, they are. It's hard to say who is the best defense. And but what I can say is Kings Mountain has a great defense, and
Right.
they got a very good offense too. Believe me, that offense is no slouch, but that defense is really, really, really good. I'm most impressed the with what I saw in person. Their size, their physicality, their ability to get to the ball. I'm gonna bring up because I think it's time we try to quickly, at least, get some people mad. Those that aren't already mad. You never know with these people. They
Oh,
run away
golly.
from us. They stop following us.
Why'd you pay me 7? I should have been 2. Yeah, we've lost 3 games, but we should be number 1. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. I took Jim. What I did is I took the RPI out this week because next week I think we're going to talk about some projections. You and I are going to try to work on some projections. Maybe do a little bit better job of projections, but this is the Get You Mad 1A, and then just for some relative look at, because I'm an objective person. I just like to have something objective laying around, even though I share my opinion any day of the week. So on the left, there's the objective data-based power rankings, and Jim, I when I look at from Tarboro to Riverside Martin, I don't see any that nothing gets me mad or turned on
Yeah.
my ear.
The thing I will share with everybody, Tarboro to me is there's a separation between 1 and 2. I'll say a fairly sizable separation between Tarboro and the rest of the group.
Uh-huh.
I think Tarboro is a team that could compete in 3As and probably be in the top 20. But from 2 to, I'm going to say, to 5, Robbinsville, Andrews, Mount Airy, and Eastern Randolph, you could put those names in the hats and
Yeah.
select 2, 3, 4, 5. It's that close at this point. Robbinsville is a little bit banged up right now. Andrews is just playing on fire, probably the best team they've had since the early '60s. Mount Airy, they have everything. They have offense, defense. They played a very good East Surrey team and lost 14-12. East Surrey is a two-way school, and I think they were legit. I saw Eastern Randolph play. Eastern Randolph doesn't have that much depth. When I saw them, I think they had 26 players suit up, and it might have been the first game of the season, first or second game of the season. But with their players, they did pretty well. After Eastern Alamance went up 14-0, the game was pretty much even after that. Eastern Alamance, so 3A school beat 1A Eastern Randolph 42-28. Then you get to the next side. Northmore is not there up to the top 2 through 5. They're a step behind Eastern Randolph, but I think they're also probably a step ahead of maybe Northampton, Drum, Thomasville, and Riverside Martin. 7 through 10 to me is kind of, pick your one that you want to put up there. And this last week I actually put in some honorable mentions. I think I only put in one team in 1A that was honorable mention, and I put in Murphy. Murphy is still Murphy, and
Yeah.
it would not surprise me they beat a team like Robbinsville or Swain or Andrews. They're still Murphy, and they're going to make a pretty deep run in the playoffs. They'll
So
probably get to at least the third round.
there's a comment here. The only thing that could cause people to get mad is there's no split classification in 1A. But 1A is one of the classifications that really didn't need a split. If you really wanted to get down to it, not the way that we were aligned previously. 1A and 1AA. I think 1A. Honestly, I believe this is better for 1A to give us more competitive, and I don't know how you feel about it, Jim, but I think that's one of the classifications that we could have probably done away with split.
Well, you know what happened was back 20, I think it was year 2000, 2001, a lot of the smaller 1A schools that had maybe 300 players, I'm not 300 players, it's going to be 300 students. They were upset having to play a team that was in 1A that had 700. And they kept on saying it was unfair that we had to play against a team twice our size, our popular school that had twice as many students or more than twice as many students. Now, the way the 1As right now are, I think there's only like 67 teams are in 1A. A lot of schools that are classified 1A don't even have a football program. And to me, it's just not needed, a split. 2A, 3A, 4A, I'm fine with 2A and 3A because it's pretty neat. But 4A,
Yeah,
I like having a consolidated championship.
I think we need 5 classifications, but
yeah, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind if they did it come playoff time. You could still have the 1A through 4A like we do, but line up all the schools by ADMs and say we're going to take the top 1/6, the top 1/6 of the schools, make them 6A, the next 1/6, 5A, and so forth, and take the smallest 16.67% of the schools, make them 1A. I'm fine with that too. The problem with doing a 5A realignment is we already have too many split classifications now, but you'd also
Yeah,
have like a 2A, 3A, 4A split, 1A, 2A, 3A splits. We've actually had that one time back in the 90s when Murphy was or not Murphy, Manny of all schools was a 3A before they created from First Flight. And they had a share, they're the only 3A school in that area and had a share being a conference with 1A, 2A schools. So uh, it's, I mean, it's doable as long as you like a lot of split conferences.
sure. No, I don't. Uh, so here we are at the 2A, and I don't know if you noticed, I threw in one of her pictures into each of the
Oh,
rankings.
great.
I thought uh, it's the same picture on all of them. But I thought,
Okay.
the guns power ranking, rank. I thought it kind of went hand in hand. So threw it
Well,
in
just
again. A
and
picture
just
that
for everybody to
captures
know,
a
that's
great
not
moment.
me. That's definitely not me and Dale at a younger age. Just want to let everybody know that.
Exactly. Although I wish I had that hair.
I'll tell you what, I was my hair looks like a net, like a bird had been sitting in it, but it's time
So,
to get a haircut, I guess. But
so
uh,
when I look here at 2A, I don't really again see anything that gets me on my ear mad, or even out of skew. Um, we see Shelby still in the top 10, and I expect to see Shelby to just climb the ladder
right.
by towards the third round in the playoffs. They're still going to be playing in the third round, fourth round. They most likely will be playing last week of the season. That's a good chance of that.
It's always a good chance for that. The one thing that I will share with everybody, I've actually had someone tell me I have a I have a Western North Carolina bias because I only have a couple teams in the East, Wallace Rose Hill and Green Central. Uh, just a news flash for everybody. I'm actually in the eastern part of the state. I'm in Orange County, and we're definitely east of the splits. And uh, I all the games I go to the last several years have been in the eastern part of the state. Every so often, I'll go into a western part, like maybe in Guilford County or Randolph County. But for the most part, I'm an eastern guy, and it's just from evaluating film and stuff like that. That's the only reason why there's only two teams. There's got some teams like Northeastern, Hertford County, Eastern, East Duplin, James Keenan, Princeton. They're all good. I just don't see any of them that can beat Shelby at this point. Shelby's ranked 10th.
Right, exactly. And
The
hey,
honor,
I think we both agree that Tarboro is going to win state in 1A. And last time I checked, Tarboro ain't anywhere near me.
yeah, I mean,
They're not
I've
on
been
this
to a
side of
couple
state.
been a couple games over Tarboro. I remember one time I froze my tail off. I was standing. This was during Thanksgiving. It was about 33, 34 degrees, and we're on top of the. It was me and Daniel Burleson. We're on top of of the uh, the public announcers booth, and right on the roof, and the wind was going about 20 miles per hour. It was a. If everybody knows about Eastern North Carolina, you have a bunch of pine trees. Pine trees do not stop the wind, and the other trees that usually can, like oaks and maples, they didn't have any leaves, and we were freezing. I mean, I looked at Daniel. Daniel back then, he'd actually break in a sweat because he loved cold weather so much. He's got that Bakersville spruce pine blood in him over Mitchell County, but 60 degrees, I'm cold, and I was freezing up there. I was one of the coldest moments I've ever been in. But looking at this though, Wallace Rose Hill, Reedsville, Monroe, Chase, Burns, East Surrey, and Shelby. I mean, I have Shelby ranked 10th, but they're definitely true title contenders. Salisbury, Maiden, Green Central. That's kind of like my next tier, to be honest with you. And the reason I have Shelby at 10th is because they've lost 3 games. It's hard to but Shelby had a Green Central, and Green Central hasn't lost anything yet. Uh, for honorable mentions, I have Forest Hills, J.M. Robinson, and Northeastern.
So Chase,
I think J.M. Robinson's one of the quiet guys. A lot of people talk about Forest Hills. I think J.M. Robinson might be even better.
I'm just looking at a comment here. I think Chase have something to say this year. They're having a good year. That's no doubt about it. Really think North Dukeland versus Tarboro will be a good competitive game, or Tarboro versus Lejeune.
No.
Well, did we? I don't think we said it would be, did we?
No, I'll tell you right now, those games would end up a running clock unless Tarboro just decides to be be overly gracious. But
Right. I agree.
I saw a comment. Do I think Maiden will win the state this year? Maiden's going to have some luck. They're going to have pick. They're going to have to go through a landmine. They got to go through Reedsville, Monroe, Chase, Burns, East Surrey, and then you got some guys like Shelby and Salisbury. There's I mean, you also have JM Robinson. You got Forest Hills. There's a lot of good teams in 2A. Maiden's not one of my favorites to win the states. However, I don't say it's impossible. They can. If they get some good breaks. Some of the other teams, have some key injuries or some really bad luck or some disciplinary issues. Anything's is possible. I'm not going to say it's 0%. I'm not going to say it's 100%. I'm going to say they have a chance.
Yeah,
I just don't know how good of a chance it is.
I think 2A West is going to be a battle royale. It's going to be tough for any team to come out on top. Right. There are a number of teams that could just, it just takes a not even a major off night, just a slightly less than normal night for you, and you can get chipped off. We think, or I think, and I think you agree, Shelby has a heck of a good shot at winning this whole thing, right. But they could definitely get knocked off. That's not out of the question. No, it's not out of the question in any of these teams. So,
I have Reedsville right now being the best team in the West. The one school, if I was Reedsville, that I would not want to play right now would be Chase. I think they could handle Monroe's athleticism better than they can Chase's. I mean, Chase is just a very deliberate team. They can score, they can execute. They do have plenty of athleticism, and it's on both sides of the football. I think a lot of people might be overlooking Chase. Another team, Burns. I think Burns and Chase. They're a couple of teams that might get overlooked, but I mean, right now I'll say Reedsville is my favorite to come out of the West. I think they have the best team, but it's all about matchups.
Right, it's all about matchups. Do you think Shelby will beat Burns this year? My comment's not going to come until after this coming weekend, at least.
Right. Right now, if they were going to play today or tomorrow, I would say Shelby to win that game. They're not going to play until the 28th, I believe. I think it's the last game of the season.
Last regular season game.
Right now, I think Shelby would win that game. However, I would not want to underestimate Burns' chance, though. But
yeah, exactly. So I'm waiting. I tend to agree with you, but I would wait before I would commit until I get closer, at least after this coming week. So 3A. This is an interesting lot here. And Jim, I saw two of these teams play, Kings Mountain and South Point, and I'm going to tell you what, South Point is good. They lost to Kings Mountain, but I left that game, and actually during the game, it's kind of funny. I met a guy on the sidelines, and we were talking about what the situation was, and I told him, I said, they haven't been. I think the kid's number was 35, big tall kid. I said, they threw to him early in the game, big play, and they hadn't thrown to him since, and I don't understand it. So I'm not making this up. So what happens? Kings Mountain kicks the ball to South Point. First play is a pass to that kid. And I think they started out on their 25-yard line, somewhere thereabouts. First play was a pass to that kid. Second play was a touchdown pass to that kid.
Wow.
And they just waited too late, I think. And obviously the coaches know their team better than I do. But I kept thinking you need to throw the ball more. Because that Kings Mountain front, I'm going to tell you, Jim, that's a solid defense.
Some hard sledding.
Big, strong, athletic. I mean, they're all of it. So this is a good looking bunch of 10 here.
I think so. I mean, I obviously have Kings Mountain number one. I think they've done the most to earn that of any of the teams in the 3A. East Lincoln, I think, is the second best team, and obviously they're in the West. Can East Lincoln beat Kings Mountain? Of course they can. I think East Lincoln has as good of a chance of any other 3A school to beat Kings Mountain. I do think Kings Mountain is the favorite, though, at this point. Come back in 3 weeks if Kings Mountain's all of a sudden got a lot of injuries, or East Lincoln all of a sudden go into a higher gear. We'll see, but East Lincoln might be a little bit under. What's the word for? Maybe not been tested quite as much as Kings Mountain. Kings Mountain's been battle tested.
Yeah, Kings Mountain has played a bunch of good teams.
Right.
You cannot be a team in Cleveland County and not play unless you just don't play any other teams in Cleveland County. You're going to play good ball games, and as we know, they all play each other. Those are all nice rivals. My only comment is I think I would have South Point ranked higher. I would have them up around 4th, I think. 3rd, 4th to 5th. But it's not much. Yeah. It's a couple of point, a couple of positions.
This is where my Eastern North Carolina bias comes in, if there is such a thing. I think I purposely, subconsciously put South Point 6 so I could have three schools in the East ranked 3rd, 4th, and 5th, like Northern Nash, Rose, and 71st. Because those 3 schools are just so close to talents. I think Northern Nash is a little bit better than Rose and 71st, but maybe not by too much, just a hair. Then I had South Point at 6. But I agree with you. It's South Point's definitely, they could be as high as 3rd at this point.
Everybody still got to go through Dudley, is what I just saw there. And
that's why I have Dudley in there. I mean, who knocked out Kings Mountain last year? Wasn't it Dudley?
Oh, man,
trying to think. Did South Point get knocked out by Kings Mountain also? I mean, I'm a big fan of Dudley. I mean, it's the boys down in Greensboro. If you ever get a chance to go to Tarpley's,
I've been there. Oh,
it's just a great football atmosphere. It's a good place to take your family. I heard some people say, "Oh, that's they had to call the game after halftime because of fighting." The fighting was in the stands. It had nothing to do with the football players. That program, there's a lot of integrity and a lot of respect there for Dudley. Just a great always felt welcome there. Great coaching staff.
Gotcha.
Got to give a shout out to Eric Cunningham, who's one of my favorite Dudley boosters. Whenever I see him, it's always a pleasure to see him. It always makes me smile. Dudley have seventh. Eastern Alamance, I've seen them play a couple games. They're talented. They're one of the best. To me, Eastern Alamance is one of the best teams in the East. And then 9 and 10, I think Oak Grove and Ledford might be playing this weekend or this Friday. That's a Davidson County matchup. And Ledford's really good. Oak Grove is really good. Both of them are undefeated. So if you're in Davidson County, Rowan County, to me, if you're in Randolph County, that's a great game to go. There are a lot of people in like a 25-mile radius of that area. So
I've got our 4A up here, which is this is a bunch of tough teams here, just from top to bottom. Do you think Chambers will win state this year? I don't. Not to say they can't, but I don't know. Chambers got a real good defense.
The thing about Chambers, though, I remember one year they lost to Huff in the regular season. I think a lot of people this is just not Chambers' years, and I think they won the state championship that year. And Chambers seems that when the weather gets colder, seems to improve a little bit.
Well, one of the things about Huff, because Huff had this happen back when Mallard Creek was in their run, and Huff beat Mallard Creek in the regular season. So you have to understand Chambers, and of course that was Vance back then. Right. These schools are all in the same conference. So you've got Huff and Chambers and Mallard Creek are all in the same conference. And Huff has been known to win in the regular season and then fail in the playoffs. So
exactly right.
We're going to have to see, can they, are they going to be able to see it through? That's another team with a very, very stout defense, and I'm talking about Huff. So I just think it's going to be difficult for any team in the West, any of the good teams in the West, to come out of the West. From East Forsyth down, it's going to be tough. There's just so many good teams. And quite honestly, I don't believe the drop is huge when you get down there to the Weddington Charlotte Catholic.
I agree with you. There's a lot of teams I have listed as honorable mentions that they didn't make the top 10, but there were the AC Reynolds, Ardrey Kell, Butler, Mallard Creek, Mooresville, Olympic, Lake Norman, Rollsville, Wake Forest. I didn't list Lake Norman, but the more I look at it, I think that Lake Norman Mooresville game is going to be a slobber knocker.
Well, see, I would have put Butler in the top 10.
I thought about putting Butler over Cleveland, but if a team hasn't, if they're in the top 10, they didn't lose bad or they didn't lose or didn't. If they won a game by the score, I thought I'll keep them in the top 10 just out of respect. Butler would be my number 11 right now.
Yeah, you mentioned Lake Norman, and man, did I miss it last week. I picked Lake Norman to win last week, and oh my gosh. Couldn't have missed a game worse, I guess. I see the comment there, Lake Norman is tough this year, but I'm really questioning now. I think the tougher team up in that direction is Mooresville. Mooresville's looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So
That Lake Norman, Mooresville, South Iredale, they play what A.L. Brown, West Cabarrus, and I'm leaving out some schools I know. Hickory Ridge, I guess.
Cox Mill.
Cox Mill. That's a good conference.
It is a good conference. I think that's a conference that has a lot of competitiveness in it.
Right.
Which again, that makes it at least tough for those teams that are in it. It may not be as tough as the Huff, Chambers, Mallard Creek conference, but it's tough in its own right. But it's maybe a more balanced top to bottom, or top to middle, to top 2/3 or something like that.
Well,
So I
I was going to say, do me a favor in that top 10, count all the teams that are from the West I have listed in there. One, two, three, four,
tough, man. Most of them.
five. Yes, it's
1, 2. Now the highest rated one from the East is a pretty solid team.
yeah.
I've been watching New Bern all year, and New Bern is really they I think will represent the East.
I think so too. I think they have probably twice as much of a chance of any like the next competitor. Let's say they have a 40% chance. I think the next top team there may have a 20% chance of representing the East.
Cardinal Gibbons certainly has a shot. I don't count them out, but I mean they're a tough team.
That they are, and Cleveland's got athletes all over the field. Hillside, Hillside is that school reminds me a lot of Dudley. Obviously, they're two of the five existing historically black high schools. The state was fully integrated by 1970, and only five of the former historically black schools, E. Smith, West Charlotte, and Carver still remain, along with Hillside and Dudley. But taking that aspect out of it, they play good defense and they know how to run the ball. They know how to take care of the ball. And
right.
Just some thoughts on that. Cleveland again, just a solid team. But there are some other teams there. I don't have Wake Forest in the top 10, and they're a very solid team. Rollsville's gotten a lot better.
Uh-huh.
But in the West, Butler, Mallard Creek, Olympic. Are they still undefeated? I think they are, aren't they?
They are. I just don't know yet, Jim. When you play, their schedule has not been
It's not tough.
the toughest schedule. So
yeah,
they're doing what the one thing you can say about it is they're doing what they should do in those games. So it's not like they're struggling or not winning them comfortably, things that you could maybe throw up flags, but in the same breath, you cannot yet throw up a flag and say, this is a top 10 team. This is a team that's going to make it. They've only had one season, so there's only one state championship game in the school's history. They lost that one. And outside of that, making it to the second round and exiting, So
right.
Is this going to be a year that they're going to make a true deep round or get into the middle of the playoffs or so? I don't know. Because their problem is the West is heavy, strong. So when you think about how many teams you have here in the top 10 and how many teams that are on the bubble of the top 10, and you start looking at a lot of those teams that are in the West, you got to go through those teams to get. I just see I see 35 tough teams in 4A. That I'm not saying 35 teams can win 4A. I'm saying there's 35 good teams, and thus teams like Olympic is going to end up playing some very good teams early in the playoffs. So
Well,
we'll
I
see.
agree. And I mean, the thing with like with Olympic, maybe in the second round they had to play someone like AC Reynolds, and if they survived that third round, they might have to play Mallard Creek. In the fourth round, they might have to play Julius Chambers. In the fifth round, they might have to play Huff or East
Exactly.
Forsyth or
Exactly.
Grimsley or somebody. I mean,
Exactly.
it's
It's a
just
gauntlet.
loaded. Yeah, it's a
So,
gauntlet.
so that it's like they could have the best regular season in school history potentially. I mean, there's a lot of things they could potentially do. They could potentially win a conference championship, something they haven't done since 2009, and something they had not done prior to that since 1997, I think it was 90, somewhere in that time frame. So, for Olympic and records, it's been good, but in relativeness to the rest of the state, um, and I would be a homer for Olympics, so I ain't jumping on that bandwagon of so. And so I see here Shelby is playing Thursday at Bessemer City. I'm not going to that game.
I'll tell you what I'll
Just
do. If you'd like me to, Dale, I can go over the schedules for.
Yeah, let me real quickly. Just we'll let everybody see the overall top 10.
Okay.
Um,
And I still have Providence State ranked fourth. I mean, Providence State might be better than New Bern. They might be better than Huff. They might be better than East Forsyth. But
well, I would hold them steady myself, and then see what happens with Charlotte Latin, and then see what happens with Raven Gap. Um, those are two regular season games to come up.
they have to
If they
play
go
Charlotte
this season,
Christian.
say again.
They have to play Charlotte Christian and Charlotte Latin or
So they got to
and
play
Raven
Charlotte
Gap.
Christian. They got to play Raven Gap. That might be it. And then
Okay.
their playoffs start. I think their playoffs start the last week of this. I have to look. I'm not certain, but I'll say this, Jim. If they go undefeated this season, so they win those games and then they win the playoffs and win the state, which means they're going to have to beat a Christian again, most likely, and beat a Raven Gap again. So they'll have to beat both of those teams twice in this season. Then I think they're legitimate to be discussed as a number one. Until then, I think this is good. Somewhere in that 4 to 5 range. Yeah. I
Gotcha.
think that's good because look at the company that they're hanging with.
I mean, Kings Mountain. I mean, wouldn't you love to see Kings Mountain and Providence State play?
I would love to see that. I think I would have a near game like what I had with Providence Day and Catholic.
Oh, I
Um,
agree.
I think it would be that kind of a game. And atmosphere again, what a great atmosphere it'd be at either place, at Kings Mountain or at Providence Day. And
Right.
you look at these top tens. You got Weddington there at 8, and I've seen Weddington. That's a really solid team. Jeff just commented that Kings Mountain's not afraid to beef up their schedule.
They got it pretty beefy already.
Yeah, Jeff was at the game Friday night. So I got to see my buddy Jeff. We saw one heck of a ball game, didn't we, Jeff? If you get a chance, Jim, you should go watch some highlights of it. It's some really good ball play in that game. Very, very good balling. So yeah, that's a good. I think those are 10 good teams there. I did find it interesting you threw East Lincoln in there. That's an interesting sling. I'm not saying it's wrong. One of the things it says is football, at least in 4A, is down. Now, these are solid 4A teams, and that 4A that we just went over is very solid. But in comparison to other seasons, the teams are not as maybe not as strong.
I agree with you, and also I think the East right now is down right now. It's New Bern, and you have some really good teams in the East in 4A, but not really a lot of what I say great teams that are destined.
Well, who did we see? Who did we see was not ranked?
Right. I mean
Richmond, right?
Richmond County. I'm gonna say in the 4As right now, they'd probably be about 50 to 60 right now.
Yeah, exactly.
That program's just
it's amazing.
It's amazing on that. It's not the coaching fault. And you know what? The Richmond fans, they're going to have their hands full this weekend. I think this Friday. I think they're playing Lee County, if I remember correctly.
So let me say one thing here. David Simmons says Mason Avery is a good RB at West Lincoln. Based on those numbers we opened up with, I think he's a great running back.
Yeah.
Definitely great for West Lincoln. When you start going up against some of the other backs in the state, of course, you know what? Some of the better backs in the state have great lines in front of them. And they got good defenses that put them in good positions for the ride. I mean, there's so much that plays into a back having a good night and a good season. That's a lot of it's on that back. But as I saw when Providence and Butler played, and Luke Bailey, who set the state record just a week or two earlier, for rushing, I think he ended up with negative yards in that game. Butler
Dale,
lived
I think my
in the
power
backfield.
just went off here.
Do what? What happened, Jim? What went off?
Yeah, my earbuds just went out.
Okay. So
here. So I'll tell you what I can do. I can share my screen, and I'm gonna go over the teams that I think are the games that I would like to go to if I was in that general area. Screen 2. So I'm gonna
says he's here, but I don't see him. All right.
So this I'm looking at Thursday night first, and then we'll go over Friday night. Thursday night. I mean, these two teams right here, Ashboro and North Davison, they've had some great teams over the years. Not now. Shelby, instead of being called the Golden Lions, they should be called the Gas Company, because the best way to kill some Yellow Jackets is by the fumes of the gas. That game is going to be ugly. If you like seeing a team dominate, go to that Shelby Bessemer City game.
No. I would love to watch Shelby play again, but I just can't stand to watch a game that's going to should be running clock in the first half.
I so agree with you.
Sorry,
Nash Central Bun to me, it's not a very exciting game. I'm gonna go to Friday, and let's see, the East, Jones, North Side, Pinetown, a couple 1A schools, nothing to watch out. Hoggard, Ashley, Hoggard to win that game. South Brunswick, Laney, so not too excited. New Hanover is a good team. New Hanover, I believe were they the ones that beat Butler at the beginning of the season, 29-28.
Yep, second game of the season or something like that.
Right.
Somewhere
Um,
early in the season.
Battle of Brunswick. I have North Brunswick as one of the team's honorable mentions in my 3A. I think they'll go 7-1. They'll win that battle. Battle over in Durham, Jordan versus Northern Durham. It's that game is 20 minutes away from me, and right now I just can't get excited. St. Paul's and Clinton. That's going to be a heck of a game right there. Those. If I was if I was in Sampson County or Robinson County area, I would definitely go to that game. I think I'm kind of interested to see how that game fares out. Clinton might have a little bit too much for St. Paul's, but I won't dismiss St. Paul's. Hillside still undefeated. They play Chapel Hill. Chapel Hill is 5-2. They have not played a strong schedule. I've seen them play Northwood, who's a struggling 3A school, and played really sloppy. I mean, Chapel Hill has talent, but they're not going to match up with Hillside. Mount Tabor and Glen, a battle over in Forsyth County. Could be a pretty good one, but I'll take Tabor in that one. Reagan will be all over Parkland. Charlotte Christian and Providence Gut Day. Now that is a good game to go to, Dale. What do you think?
Well, that's the game I'm going to. So,
You're a smart man.
I picked it. It was a toss up between it. You're going to come up on Butler Catholic. That's another good game. And then I considered Palisades and Berry. And quite honestly, the thing that probably tilted me was Langston was like, I want you to go to that game so I can steal your videos. So I'm going to go to it. It's not a hard choice of a game to go to.
We'll have to start calling Langston Robin Hood. So, another game here. East Carteret, Pamlico. I think East Carteret's 2A. Pamlico's 1A now. East Carteret actually moved up to 2A. Pamlico's been 1A for quite some time. Pamlico, they went to a state championship about 3-4 years ago. Had to play Murphy. It was back when the small 1A program's struggling right now. East Carteret should win that game. Northwood Orange. That game is 7 minutes from my house, and it'd be tough for me to go there because it's going to be a sloppy game. The game I'm going to is Person versus Eastern Alamance. Eastern Alamance should handle Person, but Person's not bad. They're a good team. They might be the third best team in that conference. Eastern Alamance is the best, and I'd say Williams is second. Person might be third. It would be between Person and Western Alamance. Down over in the Wilson, Wayne County area, Benfield, and Eastern Wayne. Mattamuskeet, Pongo, to me, that's I'll just stop right there. That would be ugly. Monroe, Parkwood. Parkwood's got a decent team, but I think Monroe should handle them pretty easily.
I think so too. Honestly, I don't think that game should be real close. I think that should be a comfortable win, but
right.
I guess we'll see. But I would pick Monroe in a several score game.
You got Cedar Ridge and Western Alamance. That's over near Elon College. Western Alamance would just kill Cedar Ridge. Apex and Middle Creek. Apex is 7-0, but I think a lot of schools, if they played Apex's schedule, would be 7-0. I'll take Middle Creek in that game. I think Middle Creek is the team to beat. It's going to be a close one. Don't get me wrong about that. I might be insulting Apex fans, but I'll take Middle Creek on that one. Cary versus Apex Friendship, nothing to watch. Christ the King, Winston-Salem Prep. Christ the King is a good 1A school. We'll see what happens in that. They've had a good season, 6-1.
Yep.
Olympic should beat South Mecklenburg. North Buncombe and Inca, that's like two dogs arguing over a bone.
All right, I'll take Inca though. I
Yeah,
just
I
like
probably will
Inca.
too.
I
Yeah,
don't I
it's
don't know. I have no idea. I haven't analyzed the game, but I just like Inca.
if you ever go into Inca, just make sure you put on like a hazmat and do something to cover up your nose. But Rollsville Nightdale, that should be a pretty good game, but I think Rolls will win that game. Community School, Davison, Lake Norman Charter. I don't know enough about these schools. By looking at the records, looks like Community Schools 6-1, Lake Norman's 4-3. Forest Hills, West Stanley. Forest Hills should win by a couple of touchdowns. Red Springs, Bladen, another ugly game. Fairmont, East Bladen, not as ugly as the other game, but still not the most attractive game to go to. Getting some ugly games here, Providence and Rocky River. I'm surprised Providence is 2-5. They must have played a pretty tough schedule, or maybe they're down this year.
Boy, it's a tough call. I've seen them. Dadgum Max Press. Why you got to show that ad?
There we go. I'll take it out here.
Yeah, I don't
Going
know
down to
that
the Eastern.
game. That game might actually be a competitive game to watch.
Right.
I'm talking about Providence, Rocky River.
Yeah.
That could be a
Exactly.
competitive game.
And if you go over to the eastern part of the state, Holmes and First Flight, Holmes will win that game fairly comfortably, I believe. Camden and Hertford County. Hertford County kind of disappointed me. I found out they had some issues with defense. They have a very good offense. Camden is nothing to sneeze at. They're a solid team. I'll still say Hertford County will win that by maybe a score. North Duplin will be all over Union. Beargrass Charter, John Paul II Catholic. I'll stop there. Nothing to talk about. A couple of schools I don't know. Northeastern Academy Community Christian. Lewisburg, Roanoke Rapids. Roanoke Rapids has athletes. Roanoke Rapids at one time was in our top 10. They have athletes on that. I'll take Roanoke Rapids to that game. Panther Creek and Green Level, take Panther Creek. South Granville, Carborough. I'll go with South Granville. I mean, that's Hobgood or it's just if you go to Creedmoor, it's just a great place to watch the game and got a good program there. Richlands at West Carteret, nothing really to talk about. Here's a good one here. Raven Gap should win that game against Charlotte Latin. Raven Gaps they have a pretty darn good team, if you ask me.
They got a very good team. One of their losses is to a top. At the time, they were a top 5 Tennessee team. I haven't looked lately to see if they dropped, but I've got a feeling they're still a top 5 Tennessee team, maybe even a top 3. They're out of Chattanooga. So yeah, that Raven Gap. Raven Gap's Latin's had a good year.
Yes.
Relative, but yeah, I think Raven Gap wins that ball game.
I'm not trying to insult anybody over Marshall, but if you lose to Forest Hills, I don't see how you're going to beat Raven Gap. And football's not linear in any way, but I just think Raven Gap they're pretty darn good, if you ask me. They might deserve to be in the top 10 of the overall. I mean, they're not even in the state, but we'll include them since they play North Carolina teams.
Yeah, they play a North Carolina conference.
Right.
They're in the Max Preps power rankings, North Carolina.
That's all it means. That's all that matters then. Southern Durham, JF Webb. Southern Durham will be all over Webb. The games will be over in Oxford. Goldsboro, North Johnson. I don't know what's going on with Goldsboro. They have athletes, and they don't come out for football a lot of times. They're 1-6 this year. This is going to be an ugly game. South Gardner schools, 2 fairly new schools in Wake County. South Gardner's probably been around about 4 years. Wellspring, I can't remember this or first or second year. Terry Sanford, Westover. It's always good to see a couple of Cumberland County schools play. This game right here, Havelock South Central. Havelock had kind of a hard spell middle of the season, and they're starting to get out of it right now. South Central, they're don't let the 1-6 record fool you. They're a decent program. I'll still take Havelock to win that. Holly Springs should be all over Green Hope. Here's an ugly game. Northwest Halifax and Kip Prize is kind of going close to the northeastern North Carolina corridor, 2-1-8 schools. Here's one that not many people are talking about. It's Heritage Wake Forest. That is a game to go to over in Wake County. I think Wake Forest will win that game, but it should be a pretty good one. Another game here, Currituck County, Pasquotank. Currituck should win that one. Rocky Mount, Southern Nash. That's two teams over Nash County. That's going to be a really good one. I love Southern Wings, Southern National. Gosh, can you speak? Southern Nash's double wing. They've historically had a tremendous running game. I don't know if they still use the same format, same formation, but fun to watch. Rocky Mount's always fun to watch too. If you're over in Bailey, that's a good game to go to. Palisades and Berry. That's Palisades might win that game. What do you think, Bill?
I think they will. They they had Myers Park on the ropes, and I don't know, a few more minutes in the game, they might have won the ball game. They led that game a number of times. So, yeah, I don't think Berry's as good as Myers Park. Not saying Myers Park is good, but
Right.
Berry is not on the level of Myers Park. So, yeah, I think Palisades has a chance to win that game. I said they would win games this year, meaning more than one. So I need them to win this game or the Harding game. They aren't beating Catholics.
Exactly. You see this game right here. This we've already talked about this one. Sometimes in Max Preps they'll list a game twice for whatever reason. We've already talked about Holmes and First Flight. Holmes will win that game. Mallard Creek, Huff, that's another good game to go to if you're over in Cornelius, over in the northern part of Mecklenburg County. I think Huff will win that game. I will say that I would not be surprised if Mallard Creek plays them really tough. I think they will play them tough, and I think they have a chance, but I think Huff just has too much manpower on the field.
To me, I think the Huff's got the best kicking game in the state, punting and kickoff.
Right.
And that, along with one of the best defenses in the state, maybe the best, but one of the best, top 5 without question.
Right.
Those two tools right there alone will hinder most offenses. And Mallard Creek's weak point is their offense. They got a good defense. Their defense, they can fly to the ball. They got speed. I'm not saying they don't have players on offense, but I just think overall to generate, I think they're going to have a hard time generating points and flipping the field. And Huff is not going to have trouble flipping the field with their kicking game. And that can, I think, put you in to tremendously bad situations on offense. So,
right.
I kind of believe it's Huff wins this game, and maybe 2 scores or more. But
I got you.
We'll see. I could be 100% wrong.
So going down the list here, West Rowan, they'll be visiting Central Cabarrus. West Rowan should win that pretty easily. Central Cabarrus had a pretty good run of coaches. You had Donnie Kiefer, and then you had Kenneth McClamrick. And ever since Kenneth's left, that program's just kind of stagnated a little bit. I think West Rowan will win that game. Millbrook, Wakefield, I have Millbrook winning that one. CBA Cock over in Pikeville, they're still undefeated, 7-0. They play West Johnson. They should win that and go 8-0. I want to tell you right now, there are 7-0 teams that are really good, 7-0 teams that are good, 7-0 teams that are decent. CBA Cock is decent to good. I think a lot of I won't say probably 35 teams in the 3A, they played that same schedule. They'd be 7-0.
Right.
CBA Cock will go 8-0 though. I have a feeling. Here's one here. These are two teams that their fan base are not happy with them as usually. Jacksonville is 3-3. Conley's 3-4. These are teams that are really good, and they just have their records just doesn't show it. This is going to be a pretty good one. It's over in Pitt County this Friday. I'll probably take Conley over Jacksonville. Weldon, North Edgecombe, nothing to watch. Here's a good one: Catholic and Butler. How good is Butler? Can Butler have some redemption after losing to New Hanover that second or third week of the season?
So I'm picking Butler in that game. It's this is a hard game to pick because the way I see this game is Butler wins it. It's going to be a close game. In Catholic, in most situations, it would be a close game, but there could be a time. So if they played 10 times, there could be a time that Catholic would outscore them by 2 to 3 scores. But I'm picking Butler, even though I've just said that. I just got a feeling about Butler. If Butler's quarterback play, that's what hurt them in their one loss this year was turnovers.
Right.
I think they had 3 or 4 turnovers in that game.
That sounds right.
I forget now, but it was something like that. So if they limit their turnovers here, it's a ball game that they, without question, can win because that's one of your best front sevens you're going to see play football.
Right.
Little
and
sus.
you know, the thing about it, he's got great coaching on both sides of the field. I mean, on Butler, Catholic, both teams, great coaching.
Exactly.
Catholic has this, I'm going to call it the system. It's not a recruiting system. I hope everybody knows that. It's just fundamentally sound. You start in middle school, you get to JV, you get to varsity, you know what you're doing, you know your plays. Butler has raw talents. They do have fundamentals. They do get better as the season progresses. It's going to be a fun game to watch.
Hales is a great coach. I won't say he's a good coach. He's a great coach.
Oh yes, he's got a ring.
That's right.
You got Asheville and McDowell. Asheville should win that game. Asheville, they did lose to TC Roberson last week, but they should beat McDowell. Per Quimmins versus Bertie. Both these teams are 1A. Bertie at one time was as high as a 4A team back 40-some years ago. Now they're down to 1A.
Yep.
Rose and New Bern.
This
is the one to watch.
What a game this one will be.
If New Bern is going to prove that they're the best team in the 4A, they got to beat Rose. Rose is a very, very good team. And the one thing difference is this is a split conference. New Bern's 4A, Rose is 3A. If Rose can beat New Bern, their stock's going to shoot up. If New Bern beats Rose, it kind of validates that why we have them as high as they are. So,
right, exactly.
That's a great game, though. I have New Bern. New Bern should win that game.
Rival game. I mean, it's got all the elements.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in Craven County, Pitt County, heck, if you go over to if you're over in Pamlico County, want to see some really good football, go down to New Bern.
Yeah.
East Forsyth, RJ Reynolds, nothing to watch. East Forsyth will handle RJ Reynolds. Independence East Mech. It's good to see Independence up there winning again. They're 6-1. They got some really good coaching now.
They'll be
Uh,
seven
they
and one after this.
they should beat East Meck pretty easily.
Yeah,
Marvin Ridge should be all over Piedmont.
yeah.
Triton Pine Forest is down in the Sandhills area. That should be a decent game. I'll take Pine Forest. Weddington at Sun Valley. Sun Valley's down, been down for a few seasons. Weddington will win pretty easily, if you ask me. Cardinal Gibbons will be all over Broughton. Granville Central, Vance County. Granville Central actually had a forfeit one game because of lack of players. Vance County won that game. Northeastern, Manio. Northeastern came off a pretty good win a couple weeks ago over against Hertford County. They're getting hot. They're starting to perfect a new offensive system. They should be all over Manio. I have no idea what LAAS Halifax Academy, so I'm skipping that. Country Day School versus Christ School. These are small. I mean, Country Day and Christ School were in the NCHSAA. They'd be a very small 1A schools.
Right, right. They're
Should be pretty competitive, though. Northern Nash will be all over Franklinton. Almost skipped this. South Wake should be Sandhills Titan. Pine Lake Prep. I mean, they're undefeated 7-0.
they're having a good season.
They're having a good season. They'll be Carver.
You know, we got to get Coach Trotter back on here.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that. Hopton, Lakewood. Hopton is really improved over the last several seasons. This game right here, if you're over in Sampson County, that's a good one to go to. Hunt versus South Johnston. Don't know enough about these teams to really speak intelligently. Both of them have 4-3 records. Carson, East Rowand, not a really fun game to watch, if you ask me. Davie County, West Forsyth. West Forsyth 2-5. This should be a pretty good rivalry game. That old Central Piedmont Conference back in the day was hot.
Kind of hard to. Yeah, it's. I'm just looking at their records, and it's like, wow.
It's hard to imagine that. Northwest Cabarrus, Concord. Concord has slipped. Northwest Cabarrus over the last 3 or 4 seasons have been really made a lot of strides on that. Unless something funky happens, I'll take Northwest Cabarrus, the Trojans, to win that game. The Bullpups, Lejeune, they play the Seahawks of Southside. Southside will win easily on that. I'm sure the people over in Beaufort County, especially Chalkawindy, will enjoy going 6-2. Gates County, Washington County. Washington County's over in Plymouth. That could be a fun game. You're down in the eastern part of the state. There's not a lot of things to do on Friday nights. So go pull for your. They're now the Panthers. So go pull for Panthers. I'm gonna skip that game. Don't know a darn thing about those two schools. Mountain Island Charter, Bishop McInnes. Mountain Island Charter should win that game. A little bit surprised that they've been struggling this year. Fike, East Wake, nothing to watch. Wilson Prep 6-1. Northampton County 5-2. Northampton County it's got too much for Wilson Prep, so I'm gonna take Northampton County. Riverside, Durham, Southern Alamance. I've seen both of these teams play. Riverside, Durham is a very good team. Southern Alamance is a good team, a very good team that might be underrated. Like both of these coaches quite a bit. To me, Southern Alamance probably has just a little bit more talent and depth. Metro a couple academy schools. I'm going to skip that. Overhills, Hornets Central, a couple other teams over in the Sandhill area. Overhills looks like a 5-2 record. I think Hornets Central is usually pretty easy to beat, so I'll take Overhills. Kinston, Wallace Rose Hill. Kinston's got athletes here. Wallace Rose Hill better respect that. They should come out with their A game, and if they do, they're going to beat Kinston handily. They get sloppy. Kinston could pull the upset, but I'll take Wallace Rose Hill by several scores.
Yeah.
Poor Montgomery Central. You had a good West Montgomery team, good East Montgomery team that consolidate. They can't get any chemistry. The players are still trying to fight through getting to know each other. Central Davidson used to be a team that used to have 0-7 records all the time. they're doing pretty good this year. So I'm taking Central Davidson. James Keenan, they'll roll over North Lenore. Let's see here. Porter Ridge, Cuthbertson. I will take Porter Ridge in that game. They beat a pretty good Monroe team earlier on in the season. So unless you know something I don't know about Cuthbertson, I'll take Porter
No.
Ridge.
I picked Porter Ridge here.
So I'll skip that game. I'm gonna keep on going down here. Just the ones I'd highlight. Chambers will handle North Mecklenburg fairly easily.
Yeah.
Ardrikell Harding. Ardrikell should be fine. Let's see here. Going down. East Duplin should beat South Lenore. TC Robertson keeps on rolling. They'll go 6-2 this week. Smithfield Selma. They're in my honorable mention right now. 7-0. Those should go 8-0. Smithfield Selma several years ago. They had like a 30-game losing streak or 20-some game losing streak.
Yeah, I remember.
Here's a battle of the undefeateds here. Tarboro not undefeated. Tarboro's lost one game. They can't remember they lost to Rocky Mount or who, but Riverside Martin 7-0, Tarboro 7-1. Unless Tarboro plays really sloppy, I think they should win by 2 to 3 scores, maybe 4 scores. Green Central, West Craven. This is actually a pretty good battle for Green Central. We're going to find out how good they are. West Craven has a lot of athletes. I'll stick with Green Central, though. I think they'll pull that game out. West Mac versus Hopewell. Who's your pick on that? West Mac, I guess.
West Mac, yeah.
Let's see here. Grimsley, they play Southwest Guilford. Southwest Guilford, I forget who I think they beat Dudley earlier on the season. They're not a bad team, but I think Grimsley will win that game. Kings Mountain will be all over Stuart Kramer. Here's another game. J.M. Rumps will be all over Union Academy. Jimmy Drawn, they're in their top 10, 1A. They'll go 8-1.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Trying to find something to talk about here. South Point, they should beat Ashbrook.
Yeah.
Ashbrook's not bad, but South Point's a different story.
Well, that's relative to some of the recent past for Ashbrook. They're not too bad, but that's not going to be a tough game for South Point. Better not be.
Shouldn't be.
No, it should not be.
Unless they had a letdown after the Kings Mountain game.
Yeah,
now
got a feeling they're going to have just the opposite. But
South Stanley, North Stanley used to be North Stanley would be the team with 0-7. South Stanley would be 4-3, 5-2, 6-1, 7-0. South Stanley is really having hard times right now. Not a game to watch. North Stanley won that game. Let's see here, going down a little bit. This is not a bad game right here. Randolph County. If you're down in, I don't know if you've ever been to Southwestern Randolph. It's right outside Ashboro. It's between Ashboro and Farmer.
I haven't been to a game there, but I've been by the school.
It is a beautiful area. I'll take Southwestern in that game. Let's see here. Tuscola still 7-0. This is a big game right here. Pisgah. I mean, historically, this has been a very
that's right.
And if recent Pisgah has handled Tuscola pretty easily, I think Tuscola could probably name their score this year. But it's a rival game. Never dismiss Sherlock. Jack Brett, Cape Fear, another decent game to go to. Dudley will be all over Rockingham County.
You just skip over Smoky Mountain, Franklin?
Yeah, this is kind of a big game. That's a good game to go to. That's a good game to go to. Let's see here. Fuquay, Gardner, nothing to watch here. Here's the one I want to talk about. Ledford, Oak Grove, Battle of Unbeaten. I've had Oak Grove in the top 10 since the beginning. Ledford just got in there this week. Oak Grove's is 9. Ledford's 10 games at Oak Grove.
Mm-hmm.
Should be a heck of a game. It's a very good game to go to. Owen keeps on struggling. They're going to go 1-7. West Henderson, they're undefeated now, 7-0. They'll be 8-0. They're in the honorable mention in 3A.
Yeah.
Here's the game to go to: Bunker Hill, Maiden. Look at Bunker Hill. You could probably count on one hand. Probably still have some fingers left about how many times they've been 7-0 over their existence. Maiden 6-1, very par for the course for them. They usually, if they play 7 games, they'll win at least 6 out of them. I think Maiden's going to it has too much for Bunker Hill.
Yeah, this was in our pick'em this week, and I picked Maiden.
I just think Maiden has too much here. Here's another good game to go to over in Lee County. Richmond, they want to be. I think Richmond's going to have a chip on their shoulder right here. Lee County lost last week to Pinecrest. Actually, Pinecrest handled them pretty good through the first half and beginning of the third quarter. Richmond County, next week they play Scotland. Scotland's struggling, mind you, but they know if they beat Lee County and then they beat Scotland, they'll go 6-4. And the first round of the playoffs, they could easily lose that and go 6-5. They lose to Lee County and lose the very first round of the playoffs. This will be the first time they've had a losing season. They'd be 5-6 since the early 70s.
Well, I picked them to win this game.
I do too. I think it's going to be emotional game here.
Well, yeah.
Nick Edens, the coach over at Pinecrest.
I like
Jeff mentioned that. The thing with Nick, I don't think of him as the ex-coach of Pinecrest. I think of them being the coach that took West Montgomery to the state championship back in 2016. Here's a game to go to: Cox Mill, Lake Norman. I think that's a pick 'em right now. I might go with Cox Mill on that one.
After what Lake Norman did to me this past week, and I saw Cox Mill play A.L. Brown. It's a very athletic team. I'm very impressed with Cox Mill's ability to move the ball. They run a nice offense and give Jonathan Grice a lot of plugs there. He makes great play calling. He's got great athletes to run his. He loves to throw the ball, and he's got great athletes that lets him do that. I picked Cox Mill. We'll see. Lake Norman might have a chip on their shoulder.
Here's another historic rivalry. We've got several of them: Tuscola, Pisgah, Murphy, Robbinsville. That's one of the best, probably the top 10 rivalries in the state. Throw Pisgah and Tuscola in there also. We're going to find out how good Murphy is. We're going to find out how Robbinsville can face some adversity. They got a couple players down right now. The game is in Robbinsville. It's going to be a packed stand. I'm going with Robbinsville. I just think they have too much for Murphy, but it's not going to be a blowout. And I'm going to tell you right now, Murphy, if they played 5 times right now, Murphy might beat them twice. But I'm going to go with Robbinsville.
I got a comment thrown up on the screen there. I don't think South Point is as tough this year, and that you're supposed to put an E on the end of that point, by the way. I don't think South Point is as tough this year as they typically are. They're way down from a normal. There's a lot of high expectations at South Point. Kind of the same expectations that used to exist with Rock Hill Northwestern. Maybe because they took a lot of their student base and thus a lot
The
of
redistricting is the good old the old transfer, the best transfer portal you can have. If you ask me.
exactly. I mean, South Point is always a team to be uh, conscious of, but I don't think they're as tough this year. I think they're just kind of good, not. They're maybe in North Carolina somewhere in the 10 to 15 range
Gotcha.
in 4A, let's say.
Yeah, going down a little bit. Let's see here.
Let me throw this comment up there because it's a valid point by our boy Jeff. South Point is tough, but Catawba Ridge and Northwestern are now the cream of the crop. It's been interesting to see what has happened with Catawba Ridge.
That's how long? How many years have they played football now?
This
3 or
is their
4?
third year, and I went down to watch them play a couple of times their first season, and you could see the potential there. The talent was tremendous, and it's not a surprise to see them as right now, maybe the best team in York County, which is saying a lot. That's like saying you're the best team in Mecklenburg County, because the football in York County is very good.
Right.
Maybe Rock Hill is not where it used to be, and I'm talking about Rock Hill High School. But Northwestern isn't quite where they used to be, but right this year they're Jeff is mentioning you and I went to that first game and they won. Yeah, that was they played Stuart Kramer and beat Stuart Kramer. Pretty Jeff is correcting me. See what's happening with my age. Fourth year. So this is an interesting season to see, because I thought within 3 to 4 years, Catawba Ridge was going to be a contender in York County, and it looks like they're meeting that mark. Now, is it because South Point is down? Certainly, that plays a part in it, but is it also that Catawba Ridge is up? I think you're seeing a little bit of power shift maybe in York County.
Right.
We see it in Mecklenburg County all the time. So,
And, it's good to have that shift. It makes rivalries better a lot of times when you have teams.
How can it be a rivalry if you beat your rival every year, right? So
exactly right.
You need it to shift around some.
Now here's a game right here: Albemarle versus Mount Pleasant. I mean, on paper, Mount Pleasant's going to win this game, but the game's not played on paper; it's played on the gridiron. It wouldn't surprise me if Albemarle surprises and wins this game, but I mean, Mount Pleasant to me is going to win it. But Albemarle, they're better than their record indicates. I mean, they are a 1A school, 2-5, but they're a good.
You think they can beat Mount Pleasant though?
I do. I think they could beat North Stanley.
Okay.
I mean, I think both teams would be favored against Albemarle, but Albemarle they play good defense, and defense will keep you in games. Offense can be very inconsistent, but again, I'll take Mount Pleasant to win that game, but don't be surprised if Albemarle shocks somebody and beat Mount Pleasant or North Stanley. East Lincoln will be all over St. Stephen's. Here's one right here. If Pinecrest beats Scotland, they're pretty much all but assured of winning their conference. That's a conference that's got Scotland, Richmond County, and Lee County, Hope County. That's going to put Pinecrest in a very good position in the 4A East.
Well, I liked Pinecrest coming into the season, and I think I like them in this game. That's going to be a tough game for them to win, though.
You're right.
But
I agree.
I like Pinecrest here.
Let's see here, going
I
down a
just
little bit.
gave the game to Scotland, by the way.
71st, 7-0. They'll beat Purnell Sweat. Here you got West Lincoln showing up at 5-2. They'll handle West Caldwell pretty easily. Let's see here, going down a little bit. This game here is listed on Thursday and Friday. I don't know if they're playing 2 games. I know they're not, but let's see, going down here, East Surrey will handle Forbush with their problems. Bandy's North Newton Conover. That could be it's not going to be a great. Neither team is very good, but that could be a very fairly close game, you ask me.
If you look at the screen that was asked, do you think Newton Conover football will beat Bandy's on Friday? So
the game's over in Newton, so they have that advantage there. I wish Alan and Jeff might be able to jump in on that, but it should be a pretty good game. Here's another good game here. Hayesville and Swing County. Hayesville's 4-3. Swing County's 3-4. Hayesville is usually one of the on the bottom tier of that Smoky Mountain Conference, but that conference is loaded this year. I think Swing County win that game. Burns should beat East Gaston. East Gaston's had a pretty decent season though. A.L. Brown South.
As East Gaston, and maybe Jeff can tell me, has East Gaston had this good a season since maybe 2006, 7, something like that? Maybe. Jeff, you can type that answer in if you don't mind. That's just I'm with you. I think Burns wins that game. I'm not saying East Gaston's going to win.
They have a very good. Historically speaking, they've had a pretty good season this year. That's for sure.
I think so.
Here's one for you. South Iredale down over in the Troutman area. They're host A.L. Brown. 2 teams 4-3. I'm going with South Iredale in this game. Oh, here says East Gaston has a great season last year. Yeah. It came out of nowhere. I was thinking they had a pretty decent season.
This good? I don't remember it, but I don't know. We'll see.
So Reedsville, they'll beat West Stokes. Eastern Randolph, they 6-1, played Providence Grove at 5-2. Eastern Randolph is the only 1A school in their 2A.
So hang on one second though. The A.L. Brown South Iredale. What did you think about that?
I think South Iredale is going to win that game. I think it's going to be a good one, but I want to see something from A.L. Brown this year, and I just don't know if they have it right now or not. And it's not they have great coaching. I just don't know if they have enough Jimmy and Joes on the field.
No, they definitely don't have enough Jimmys and Joes. At least that's what I saw at the Cox Mill game. They need some more bodies, but they've got a few good ball players. I don't know much about South Iredale this year.
It should be a pretty decent one here. Do you think Hickory will win this Friday? I have no idea who Hickory plays. We'll find if not, we'll go back at the end and find out. Reese will be all over West Stokes. Eastern Randolph will beat Providence Grove. Andrews will be all over Cherokee. Morrisville will be all over West Cabarrus. Salisbury will be all over Lexington. Skip these here. Mitchell, Mountain Heritage, this has been a pretty good rivalry over the years. Oh, here we got Hickory. Yeah, Hickory will beat West Iredale. I feel pretty confident about that. Never dismiss a joke last team. Mitchell playing Mount Heritage. Mitchell has struggled this year. But they've lost to teams like Watauga. Watauga's a 4A school. Mitchell's a 1A school.
Yeah, I would pick Mitchell, but I'm going on tradition more than anything. But
yeah. Mount Heritage has trouble scoring. Mitchell's had problems with the defense, though. They let Andrews run all over them earlier on the season. And they also lost to Jimmy Drawn over in Valdez, and uh, Mitchell is going to win this game, I feel, but uh, they're going. They need to up it up to get back into the top 10 right now. I don't even have them as an honorable mention. Let's see. Not going to talk about those games. Oh, this is an ugly game here. Jordan Matthews and Graham. See here, Hoke County. I mean, it's good to see Hoke County winning games again. They've for about 7, 8, 10 years they seem to be kind of hitting the doldrums a little bit, but it's good to see them winning games. That's a good program they have there, and they should beat Union Pines pretty easily. Here's one here. Cummings 4-2, Northmore 7-0. If you look at their power rankings, they're let's say like I want to say Northmore is like maybe 177th or 173rd best in the state. Cummings is like 177th best. I mean, I can't remember the exact numbers, but there's only like out of 400 some schools, there's only about 4 schools separating them in the power rankings and Max Prep. I like Northmore. I like Cummings. You're going to see a lot of running in that game. I'll give Northmore the win because it's at their home field. Northmore 1A to Cummings 2A school. Do you think East Burke will win Friday? Let's see who East Burke plays. They play Lincolnton. I'm going to say I'll take Lincolnton in that game.
I'll take Lincolnton, yeah.
See if I got any more games here. I think I covered them all. Yeah, I covered them all here.
Yeah.
So I'll stop sharing my screen.
There's some interesting games this week.
Yeah.
Some important, I think, some important matchups that's going to determine some conference, potentially some conference situation. So maybe next week when we can talk a little bit about some projections. I think, Jim, what we can do is export the RPI rankings off the NCHSAA. It has records and, of course, RPI rankings. So we can export those into Excel.
Right.
And use those as the base data and then project the rest of the games for the conference winners, the conference leaders, to project conference seeding, the number one seeds. It might actually be easier to seed or to project than it used to be, especially when we had split conferences and you had to worry about who was going to be on the bubble of ADM.
Longitudinal lines, when you do when you have to separate between the East and West and stuff like that, the ADMs, first thing you have to do is determine if they're going to even be in the playoffs. They always take the best 32 teams or 64 teams in the 1As, and they split it up.
Yeah, I got to look at all the playoff. I haven't looked at the guidelines for this season's pairings to be able to do projections.
Right.
But I used to do them out of a spreadsheet, and of course,
I love Excel.
Yeah, exactly. It was a lot harder when you had to worry about 1 and 2 and split conference 1 and 2 and ADM for big A, little a, and East, West, and to keep up with all that was a lot harder. But I believe it can easily be exported, at least to start with.
Dill, before I used Excel, I used to use Lotus. I don't know if you remember Lotus.
Lotus 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I remember Lotus.
Yeah. And Lotus, let's say that they had, X number of things that you could do. Excel has probably 150 times X of what they can do now. I love Excel. Lotus was like, let's let's learn how to make fire with some flint and some paper or whatever.
The funniest story I have concerning Excel. I worked for my manager was one of the owners of the company, and Jesse Batten was raised on a farm in Tennessee, and he was exactly what you would think of someone who might be, a good farm boy. Now, Jesse is a doctorate in physics, so he was not no dumb guy, but he had hired into his company this typical Apple geekish guy. He always wore bow ties in an environment that we're building industrial control panels, and nobody's coming to work. And if you're coming we're going into the office in Chattanooga, you didn't come dressed the way he did. Anyway, he used to produce these little charts and things he was doing, and Jesse sat down with me. He said, "I just want you to do one thing for me." He said, "You don't have to do anything else the rest of this year." I'm like, "What is this, Jesse?" Because it's like April, or it's real early in the year. He said, "You got to teach me how to generate charts in Excel," because he was getting tired of Ron, who was the marketing guy. So I spent a little time with Jesse and set up a few spreadsheets for him, so he could generate. We're talking about 1991 time frame. So I set up a few spreadsheets and put everything in so that it would generate his charts for him. And the next week, he said he told me that when they did their presentations, so Jesse does his, and we're still in the time frame of doing. You know what overheads are?
Oh,
You remember overheads when you laid them on a projector and they would, the.
Oh yeah, I grew up in the 80s.
Right. So you know what overheads are. So
Oh yeah.
he had to he printed his charts out, to overhead, and they his charts were better than Ron's, and Jesse was just so tickled. We called Jesse Papa Bear because he was a big man, gentle, but if you got on his wrong side, he'd rip you apart like a bear would rip you apart. And he's like, "I didn't know it was so easy." Because Excel was that way. It was very, very easy to use and very powerful, as you say. I only had a little bit of experience with Lotus. I really latched on to Microsoft early in the 80s, and kind of stuck with Microsoft. I played with Lotus, but I found it to be not as intuitive as Microsoft as Excel was. So
yeah,
I love Excel. I had some very nice spreadsheets back in the 2004 through 2011, 12. When I was doing a lot of projections and all, I had some real nice spreadsheets. I kept everything in conferences and would change it every year that there were alignments in conferences. And
here's one for you, Dale. CPAs back 15 years ago, they used Excel religiously. I mean, even probably more like 20 years ago. Just if you were a CPA, you're doing auditing or doing some type of valuations or whatever, you used Excel. That was you did all your created all your templates in Excel.
right.
And they did a test of let's say 100 CPA firms, and they had them select their client that had the most Excel spreadsheets. They looked over it, and I'm gonna say something like 97 of those clients, they found some type of error in Excel, where they forgot to copy something right, or they didn't pick the number, get a
Uh-huh.
number or VLOOKUP from the right column or row, whatever. And so many errors can happen on that. If you go to like if you we ever do get a uh, borrowing like the old Carolina Varsity, what do we used to call it when they predict games,
But yeah, the report, they,
yeah, the
yep,
CV report.
yep,
It just takes a couple of errors to make it look horrible, where you have Lejeune beating the crap out of Tarboro or something like that.
yep,
There's there's a human error happens quite a bit. If I remember right, the CV report, if it was going to be the largest victory you could have is like 60-0 or something like that.
yep.
I think he capped it out at 60 points,
It
which is
was,
a
I
smart
think
thing to do.
that's right. I think it was 60. You know that he he tried to use um, Google Sheets, and he couldn't use Google Sheets for it. He wrote code, and he did most of the bulk work um, in spreadsheet, and he wanted to use
Right,
Google Sheets because he just did not like Microsoft. But he ended up having to use Excel because there were a few functions that Google Sheets did not have that Excel did have.
right.
But most of his work, I think he wrote a program to scrape max preps to get the scores and everything, and to organize them. But I think all of his the actual hardcore work was in Excel, and not in a an external program. So the algorithm sat behind Excel, if I understand correctly. Uh, I
Mm,
wish we had that work. We could just I could take it and build off of it if I had to.
right.
To build it from scratch, I just don't. I want someone else to do it, I guess.
You know, it's a tedious project, and the thing about it is both of us work for a living. I mean, we're not independently wealthy. We're not retired.
Yeah.
Uh, the and I have a statistics background. I mean, I graduated as a statistics major at Carolina. I'd have to go back and look at my regression models from back in 1992, 91, 93 to put something together. And
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't mind playing around with it. First thing I have to do is find the statistics book. It's somewhere over here in one of my shelves. I know. Uh, I kept. I had the same. I had used the same book for 2 semesters, Stat 101 and 102. I took 126, 127, Stat 181. I took a bunch of math courses. I took combinatorics and matrix theory. Now, combinatorics is a lot of fun, but matrix theory was the best. Had a guy that, get this, Dale, you'll enjoy this, being a big sports enthusiast. His name was Dr. I think it's Kolowska, I think was his name. And he was a professor at Williams College, and he was older than dirt when I got there. He was like 75 years old. And two of his students was Faith Vincent, the former Major League Baseball commissioner. Another
Hmm.
one was George Steinbrenner. And he said that Steinbrenner's daddy called him up because Steinbrenner didn't get I think he got like a D or D plus or something like that, and was
Uh-huh.
trying to negotiate, threaten, whatever. And this guy, if you ever met him, he sounded like uh, Elmer Fudd. He was just basically telling him to pound sand. But then he said Faye Vincent. Now Faye. I don't know if you know this, but Faye Vincent was. I mean, he was basically crippled. I mean, he fell down. I can't remember if he fell out of a window or something like that. He had trouble walking. He had a pretty significant injury, but said Faye Vincent was a really good guy and probably the worst pick ever for Major League Baseball commissioner. He said that He said, I knew good and well what he was going to do. He was going to play hard. Now he said, wait in a couple of years, he'll get fired because the owner's, he's not living to himself. And I think it was like end of that semester is when the baseball owner said, you're out of here. I saw a couple of comments about Maiden Lincolnton. If you're worried about Maiden losing Lincolnton, I wouldn't worry about it. Maiden should win that game pretty easily.
Yeah.
John, looks like they can really make a run in 1A. I totally agree with that. They'll win the Western Highlands Conference. Shelby football will win the state this year, 2022. They're definitely a contender.
They're one of the contenders. There's no question.
Oh, well, Dale, I don't know about you, but my voice is getting more raspy than usual.
Jim, there's probably some algorithms available. To me, the biggest issue, just to give you some, food for thought, is one, getting the scores, and maybe I might talk to my daughter about this and see if she wants to write a little program to do it, but to scrape Max Preps to get the scores.
Yeah.
The conference information. The other thing, the thing that really made that report, I thought, interesting was its future predictions.
Right.
And, predicting everything every week for the remainder of the season. So using his predictions for everything all the way out to a state champion, and of course that changing. That might be the harder part than the actual coming up with an algorithm to power rank based off of current and past.
Yeah, it's the thing with Max Preps. A lot of times they use the beginning of the season. They use last year's data to kind of help rank the teams. You got to have some type of starter, but instead of using last year's data, I kind of like having a little bit of a human element. It's like you're starting a fire. You got to have a spark, Yeah,
I'm trying to remember exactly how the CV report handled that. Because I had discussions with him about there are certain programs that you can just name them, and that they're at least going to be, they're not going to have a lose season.
Right.
And the chances of them having a near middling season, say a 6-5 season, are less likely than them having a 9-2 season.
Right.
Butler's one of those programs that Huff, Chambers, there's a lot of programs that we used to think Richmond was one of those. Now that changes. So I talked to him about having some kind of starters for a season based on historical. And that's maybe one of the places some of the data you have could potentially come into play.
Right. The big thing
looking at historical of teams and where they, because if if we analyze historical data enough, we could probably see trends of programs as well.
Right. The one thing that when it comes to historical, though, you always have to look at whether a team has always been in a certain classification or they've gone up or down.
Oh, sure.
You also have to look at whether a school has all of a sudden had another school built into the county, or if the school ended up being a consolidation of two other schools. Like, a lot of people say, well, when West Montgomery and East Montgomery consolidated, they're going to be a killer team. And Yeah, they're getting killed. They're a killed team right now. They're 0-7. Uh, Look at Cherokee, not Cherokee, but Andrews and Murphy. They're going to be consolidating in a few years, and I will tell you right now I don't expect a lot from that new whatever that new high school is going to be named.
Right.
I think it's going to be they're going to struggle. You look at you remember Silva Webster? They used to be Silva Webster, and they used to be Cullowhee, and they consolidated to become Smoky Mountain. And I mean, they've struggled a lot until just the last 3-4 years. They've had some pretty decent teams, but I won't say for like 20 some years they struggled.
So see, I think again, that's where if you look at historical data, that the splitting to create another school or the combinations of schools is going to probably play into some of those trends as
Right.
well. And you can't use it as a final, this is a good mark, but it can maybe get you close. I'm thinking it's all about how much data we could get and how much could be applied to it. But I do like to have some kind of starter to at least get you going, and then work on the current progression as the season moves through. Because usually somewhere by the 5th week of the season, the current data is enough to really get you close.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm thinking there's some AI that can be added to this in some manner. That's why I want to get some kids involved.
Need some kids with a lot of energy, got a lot of time on their hands.
Yep.
It's like, you know what, you don't need to date, don't need to have a social life.
Exactly.
Work for
I'm
us
going to answer
instead.
this
We're not going to
question
pay you
here.
anything, but we'll put something. You can put something on the resume that you work for Carolina Varsity.
Exactly. Who is a threat to beat Huff in the state? Lots of teams.
East Forsyth,
East Forsyth, Chambers,
Grimsley,
Butler, Newbern. There's a lot of teams in the West that could be a threat. So
yeah, it's just you have to come in and be willing to play every week.
And a question asked here that I don't really know the answer to.
Why has Shelby's defense fallen off this year? Well, the interesting thing about it is that's a good question about it. A lot of times it depends on who you play. Uh, if you play like a Kings Mountain and you allow 35 points, that's not a bad showing here. I'm gonna look at Shelby's um, who they play. They gave up 28 points to Kings Mountain.
No,
No shame in that.
They gave up a lot of points in
AC
the
Reynolds
Crest
led them
game.
up 45 points. Crest lit them up for 54 points.
Exactly. They gave up a lot in that game. But
there's going to be a lot of teams that give up more than 28 points against Kings Mountain. AC Reynolds, that's a hard one to swallow. And Crest scoring 54 points, that's a hard one to swallow. I couldn't tell you exactly what, but look at the last 3 weeks. It's like you can have a great defense and give up 28 points against Kings Mountain, and then you can have a very average defense. And between Cherryville, Thomas Jefferson, Highland Tech, they've only scored 6 points. I mean, it's a good question on that. I don't know if they got graduations.
Not being at close to the team, it's hard to. I think the only people who have watched them play each week and know them and could speak it with an unbiased point of view could answer that question.
Well, the problem with over in Cleveland County is you get the Tarzan effect. You know what the Tarzan effect is?
Oh yeah.
You get someone doing this number right here, beating their chest, It's like, oh, Burns is the best. Oh, Crest is the best. It's Shelby. No, it's Kings Mountain. And then you get the guys over in Gaston County, South Point. They try to get into the act and get the, you know, they'll say they'll beat Kings Mountain by 2 or 3 scores. Kings Mountains, they fear us and they're scared of us. You
Gaston,
don't tug on Superman's cape.
right. Now, Gaston County used to be able to provide a few schools beyond South Point
I
that
mean,
could,
Ashbrook.
yeah, like
Ashbrook used to be
Ashbrook,
really good.
but not recently. Okay. Well, I
This has
think
been
that's
fun,
the end
Dale.
of. Yeah, let's go ahead and call it an evening.
All right, Dale. Listen, for everybody for Jim and Dale and everybody else at Carolina Varsity, thank you so much for joining us. Carrie, thank you so much for hanging out. Jeff, appreciate you helping us out here. Garrett, Alan, all of you guys, we guys are doing a great job supporting our mission here at Carolina Varsity. So thank you all and hope you have a good night.